Walking the streets of Nigeria, millions of youth are lost in the shadow of uncertainty. Focus, a non-diplomatic, investigative and hard-talk program, takes an in-depth look at how government policies and social trends affect the common youth. Join Focus every week on ck10media.com.
The coming of information communication technology and the internet has been a blessing in so many forms to people from all walks of life. Teachers, researchers, students, scientists, and journalists have all benefited widely from this invention over decades. However, the causes that comes with it are also well noticeable. In Nigeria, millions of youth, for one reason or the other, are engaged in cybercrime. As a matter of fact, Nigeria currently ranks third in global internet crimes. Welcome to Focus on CK10 Media. My name is Joseph Effiong. Today on the show, we will be looking at cybercrimes and the implications. I have guests in the house to help examine the effect of cybercrime, the causes and history of cybercrime in Nigeria, and the possible solutions. When we come back from this short break, we'll go straight to discussions. Stay tuned.
Walking the streets of Nigeria, millions of youth are lost in the shadow of uncertainty. Focus, a non-diplomatic, investigative and hard-talk program, takes an in-depth look at how government policies and social trends affect the common youth. Join Focus every week on ck10media.com.
Welcome back to Focus. We are looking at cybercrime and the effects and how it has given our youth a whole new identity and the implication of cybercrime in Nigeria to the Nigerian brand. And I've got two gentlemen in the studio to join the discussion. First is Mr. Doyin Ijiola. He is an IT expert and the CEO Orange Integrated Limited. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
And also we have Barrister Evans Ufeli. He is a legal practitioner of international repute. Barrister, you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
Before we go into the discussions, please ensure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at CK10 Media. To start with, Nigerians are naturally believed to be people of high moral values and religious. But in recent times, it seems like cybercrime has taken away all of those beautiful identity. Let me start with our ICT expert, Mr. Doyin. What is the implication of this to the Nigerian brand?
The implication of cybercrimes in Nigerian brand in the world over, it does us more harm than good, because so many countries don't even trust us anymore. They don't want to deal with us because they are actually at the brunt of some of our crime, of all the cybercrime that we do. Our youths who are engaged in cybercrime are not yet targeting a lot of Nigerians as much as they are targeting foreigners. So those foreigners are actually feeling the pains of these crimes. So they actually have a bone to pick with us. So it affects them trusting Nigerians who have legitimate businesses with them. They double check you. Some don't even want to deal with you. There are places that we are blacklisted. There are forms that you can't even fill because you're a Nigerian. Our name are just off the list, because people just generally believe that we are all 419s and crooks as a result of some few elements who are engaged in cybercrime.
Okay. What is now how does this affect the Nigerian economy?
How does it affect the Nigerian economy? Yes. In various ways. One, at home, it actually reduces our industry. By industry, I mean hard-working youths. When I am hardworking, I go to work, and I see somebody else who stays at home all day, drives better car, has the finer girls, enjoys his life more than I do, I found out what's the point of me working hard? Why don't I join him? Why don't I follow the easy path? So at home, we are actually eroding our morals and our values. In the international market, people just don't trust us. Trust itself is a tender, is a lead. How do I put it? Trust is very important in business. Assumption of trust is the foundation of business, of international business. So when that is missing, you find out that it's difficult for you to do business. Things that other countries will shake hand on and goods are supplied, we are extra checked, we are doubted. Some people don't even want to deal with us at all. Either you are legit or you are illegitimate, they don't want to deal with you again because of some people who are engaged in cyber crimes.
Barrister Evans, in 2015, in 2015 alone, Nigeria lost about 127 billion to cybercrime. Those engagers in this illegal act are now being celebrated in the society, even in the face of ICPC, EFCC, and other agencies that are supposed to fight this act. Now, are there laws to actually curb the perpetrators of this act in Nigeria? And if there are laws, are those laws sufficient?
Well, there are laws. In 2015, before President Goodluck Jonathan left office, he signed the Cybercrime Act, upon which Section 24 of that Act, subsection 1, chronicled down to other provisions, addresses the issue of cybercrime. The law was necessary because much longer than now we have lived our lives offline. Okay, we have engaged in businesses, we have engaged in commercial and economic activities offline. But recently, most of our business engagement internationally, even within this space, is now online. So in as much as we have laws that cater for human activities and regulate conduct offline before now, it was necessary to have a law that will cater and regulate human activities online. Okay. And that is why that law came into existence. Now the law itself was enacted in such a way that the cyber crime, just as you have crime offline, you have crime online. Now the crimes online was factored into the law, and that is what Section 24 of the Cybercrime Act addresses. It also addresses it to the extent that where you falsify your identity online for the purposes of defrauding, for the purposes of engaging in advanced fraud, or for the purposes of kidnapping, or for the purposes of even misrepresenting facts, figures, and then engaging in cyber crime. The punishments are there and they are grievous. Now, have these laws, or is this law sufficient? We have started the journey, okay? For cybercrime, the law addresses it. Have we had convictions? Or have people been arrested and charged to court based on this? Yes. Even before the Cybercrime Act was signed, people have been prosecuted using the Criminal Code and the Penal Code, which were existing laws before the Cybercrime Act came into enforcement. Okay? So I think that we can do more with these legislations, given that crime online is getting sophisticated by the day. Okay, and as such, the laws need to be as dynamic as possible to meet up with the speed of ICT. You understand? Yeah. But generally speaking, we've had cases where EFCC have convicted people for 10 years, 17 years imprisonment. We have a lot of convictions all over the country. Even though there are cases where we've also had abuse, okay, where sometimes the boys who engage, the people, let me use people because we also have female who engage in cybercrime. The people who engage in these activities have so much money that sometimes they can bribe their way through the process of our criminal administration. And then when that happens, it also draws us backward. It places a kind of a sense of inefficiency on the laws and the law enforcement agencies who are supposed to carry out this activity. But even the international communities are aware that we have two major institutions created purposely to fight cybercrime. And even Amnesty International on several occasions have commended Nigeria and the EFCC in particular for, arresting, charging, prosecuting, and then which has led to the conviction of many, persons involved in advanced free fraud and all that. So I think that the international community have seen the sincerity of the government towards a fight against cybercrime, but at the same time, government must also make sure they put the necessary economic facilities. Section 14, subsection 2 of the 1999 Constitution says, it is hereby accordingly declared that sovereignty belongs to the people through which government derive our legitimacy, that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. The security and welfare, that's the two pillars of governance. Okay. In a country where you have the absence of both, you will have your youths in cybercrime, you will have them in robbery, you will have them carrying out all kinds of illegal activities, because the basics upon which human existence is supposed to strive is absent in the country. If you look at the Abraham Maslow theory of need, it talks about the hierarchy of need. The first is your physiological need. And if you have not met that, nothing is your priority again. That is what to eat, wear, and drink. Do you understand?
Yes.
What civilized countries of the world have done is to help their citizens to take care of that first level of human existence. That is a mortgage system for housing, provide food stamp for people who don't have food, provide clothes for people who don't have, so that they can begin to live their life from the secondary level of existence and then make, things possible for themselves. But in a country where you are born into deprivation, you are born stranded, and then people will have to cater. This is not to justify cybercrime or whatever crime, but I'm saying that as much as government pursue to arrest, detain, and convict these people, government must also, by way of palliative or by way of curing from the root, provide security and welfare of the people.
But Barrister, with all of these laws and the agencies we have, it is crystal clear that a large chunk of young Nigerians who are engaged in this act are walking freely on the street. What's your take on that?
Well, you can say some of them have not been caught.
Okay.
You understand? Because I know of people who have been charged to court and who have been convicted. I also know of people who have been charged, of various crime, but the EFCC could not prove its case beyond reasonable doubt. Because the standard in criminal prosecution is that you must prove your case beyond reasonable doubt. You understand? So that is why it is important that when they are arrested, investigation must be watertight. Trial starts from investigation. If your investigation is shabby, if your investigation is not watertight, is disjointed, a smart defense counsel, what the smart defense counsel will do in court is to make sure it creates doubt in the mind of the court. And once doubt is created in the mind of the court, that case must be resolved in favor of the accused person. And that is the problem we have. So EFCC, ICPC, and the rest of them must be able to have concrete material evidence to prosecute cases against these persons who are involved in this activity. For you not to have them walking freely on the streets, yes, investigation and then prosecution must be efficient. Otherwise, you will charge them, but you can't secure conviction. Because to secure conviction, you must prove beyond reasonable doubt that even when you find money in someone's account, the law is not that because you found money in the account, the person is guilty. You must prove how that money is a proceed of crime. You understand? And once you lose those links they are supposed to use in getting to prove beyond reasonable doubt, the law is that that case must be resolved in favor of the accused person. And that is why you have the few of them who you have, who refer to as walking freely.
Well, on that note, we'll go on a short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at the possible solutions to cybercrime in Nigeria.
Walking the streets of Nigeria, millions of youth are lost in the shadow of uncertainty. Focus, a non-diplomatic, investigative and hard talk program, takes an in-depth look at how government policies and social trends affect the common youth. Join Focus every week on ck10media.com.
Welcome back. It's Focus on CK10 Media. We are looking at cybercrime in Nigeria, the causes, the effects, and the laws. So, gentlemen, there are various classifications of cybercrime. Most Nigerians tend to think that cybercrime is just limited to the one we have where the Yahoo guys, where maybe they chat you up online, then ask you to send money and all that. Aside that, what are other classifications of cybercrime? And what are some of the limitations to fighting this cybercrime in Nigeria? Mr. John.
All right. Cybercrime is actually very, very broad. You cannot exhaust it, even with that classification. I'll give you a few of them. You can talk about stalking online, cyber stalking. That's following somebody, getting information about where they live, in the bid to threaten them, and to extort money from them, blackmailing. You can talk about fake news, even talking about spamming. Sending unsolicited mails is actually a crime. It's a crime to just be sending on en masse, sending unsolicited emails, unsolicited SMS, like you're invading somebody's privacy. You can look at maybe identity theft, stealing somebody's identity to commit fraud or false pretense. You can look at bullying, which is very, very common in the Nigerian cyberspace. We don't even know it. We think it's harmless fun. Picking up somebody, talk them down because of their idea, or talk them down because of their differences. That's bullying. It's being frowned at in the world over because it has led to depression, led to suicide, led people damaged psychologically through their adult life. Then you talk about financial crimes online, stealing of people's bank information, their credit card records, their ATM records, buying, shopping with somebody else's bank details. All these are all of them they are numerous. There's one major one that we are actually grappling with in Nigeria. A lot of us don't even know that it's a crime. It's fake news. Forwarding fake messages. It can bring down a nation. It can lead to community engaging in warfare against each other because somebody spread information that is not true, picking pictures from maybe Angola and saying that they are killing people in Oshodi. Now, we've seen some of them in this election recently. People sharing fake images attached to explain away their narrative. All these things are actually crime that we should look into because they can tear down the fabric of our society if you're not careful. And the thing about cybercrime is that the cyber culture is relatively new. We are all learning the culture, both the law enforcement and the citizenry. It might take us a long time to even know the implication of some of the things we are doing now because the cyber culture is still nascent.
So, as an ICT expert, couldn't there be a way we could have used biometrics to fight cybercrime in Nigeria?
This is what I would say. Like most of, say, financial cybercrime that are committed are not even committed by maybe hacking of, or as a sophisticated program to hack an account, or to break down, to go into the server of a bank and steal record or steal money. The 90% of the hack are actually done by social engineering. Social engineering deals with false pretense, lying to somebody, telling you that, oh, your bank has changed your link, click on this link now, enter your detail to secure your account. That's phishing, sending you, as in using another person's information, like your bank, to send you a message so as to trick you so that they can steal your identity. Most of 90% of cybercrime that we experience is through social engineering. And there are simple ways by which you cannot fall victim of such. If we follow simple things, we will not fall victim of things like this. Let's start with fake news.
Okay.
How can I know that this news is fake or is true? So when I get sensational news headline, first thing is my gut feeling. Like, no. Gut feeling like, no, this cannot be true. Let me check further. So if I get an information, maybe I get an exclusive that, oh, there's riot in Oshodi, for example. And I get, those forward messages that you get. The first thing you ask yourself is that, if the major media are not picking it, there's a likelihood of it not being true. Reason is that they have more resources, they are more out there than the small blogs that you get the information from. How can the small blog get the information before CK10, for example, with all the resources of CK10? So you ask yourself, oh, have I checked it out on CK10? Is it there? So if CK10 has not picked it, there's a likelihood of it's not true. Oh, they said it's happening in Oshodi. Do you have a friend around Oshodi that I can call? Oh, is there riot in your area? Oh, can I check Google for Oshodi? Is there only one person that is reporting it? Or all the sources reporting it, are they picking it from one source? Those are simple things we can do by ourselves.
So, Barrister Evans, talking about fighting cybercrime in Nigeria, let's look at the society. Because the perpetrators of this act, the engagers in this act, spend the money in the society. So are there things the society itself can do in fighting cybercrime in Nigeria?
Yeah, I think what society can do is that we must go back to the home front. The family is the smallest unit of society. Okay, and in those days, when people break through wealth suddenly, questions are asked. Even in the neighborhood, how did you come about all this? Even your parents will have to ask you. Some of the persons within the neighborhood will have to ask to know how you come about all the resources you suddenly have acquired. But that was in the past and the old past. I don't know whether that past can still come back again. But we need to know that when people break forth like this, they should not be celebrated. Because this society runs against itself. When people suddenly come with resources, throwing parties here and there, carrying women here and there, and then buying all kinds of cars, people are not asking questions how they come about this wealth. People only want to associate with them, give them chieftaincy title, to encourage them, and then maybe take communal demand to them. Come and fix borehole for us, or come and do, and then give chieftaincy title so that they can, and all that. Society must stop that. Society should become a little bit more investigative. You understand? Society should be able to probe into, not necessarily into people's private affairs, but at least join forces to ensure, do you understand, that people who come around brandishing money, brandishing wealth and resources are not people who have gotten it from cyber offenses, or who have procured all these resources from that. Like I said, the home front, we need to watch our children, what they do. And we need to watch the friends they keep, because people are recruited into these kind of things by peer pressure, and sometimes by their in school, or sometimes in the neighborhood, or places where they go to, and friends they visit. That's how they get recruited. And when they are recruited and they begin to engage in this activity and begin to see resources and all that, parents and in the neighborhood and people should ask questions, and then try to investigate this, and possibly report to the law enforcement agencies to investigate the source of all these resources. I think that is what society can do, because if we allow these things unchecked, we're going to have different kind of crime. Today is not just the cyber crime now. They have added some other ancillaries to it, like the Yahoo Plus. There's a plus to it, which is a spiritual dimension. And that dimension have been added to the traditional fraud activity that is going on. And now they are now using voodoo, they are now using different kind of mystic and super sensible arrangements to lure people nationally and internationally to submit their this thing and all that. And we should we should be able to investigate that. They also kidnap people, force them to bring their phone, check their phones to find out bank apps, yes, and then ask them to enter their PIN number in the bank app and transfer money. These are cyber crime, because the transfer is going on online. And then when all that is done, the level of crime is expanded, and then the scope, the modus operandi of the perpetrators, they are expanding it by the day. So that is why I said that the law must also be as dynamic as possible to reach out to all the areas they have put their hands into. Even though you cannot legislate on voodoo and mystic engagements, but there must be a way society can respond to it, and possibly to pick those who concoct this, whether they are native doctors, or I don't want to indict anyone, but those people who concoct these things for them should be fished out, and then society can from there begin to resolve the issue.
Okay, so Mr. Doyin, what is your final word on cybercrime in Nigeria? Can we conquer this illegality?
I would say my final word should be that yes, we can, if we all collectively put our hands on deck and say this must stop. We should realize that easy money corrupts. We should be wary of easy money that we don't work hard for. We should encourage our words to imbibe values of industry. We should encourage society at large to speak out against perpetrators. We shouldn't abhor them. We shouldn't give them chieftaincy titles. We shouldn't hail them, sing about them. We all should see that it's our collective responsibility to stop this. Because more than we know it is harming us. It is preventing commerce. It is making it difficult for our young, genuine entrepreneurs to have partnership overseas. It is making banks to spend extra money to provide security that necessarily shouldn't be there in the first place. But because people are hell-bent on stealing other people's funds by easy means, it means that we have to spend more as a society to prevent them. But if our values are intact, some of this money we'll spend to put extra security can be spent on some other things that will benefit our lives collectively.
Okay, so Barrister Evans, what's your final words on cybercrime in Nigeria?
Well, like I said, the government must provide resources to make life worthwhile What I mean by that is that the security and welfare of the people, which is the primary purpose of government by the constitution, the government must revisit it, okay, and then make sure they provide security and welfare for the people, so that Nigerians can start off their life from the secondary level of existence, as against being born into deprivation, as against being born stranded. Because these things have factors. There are a lot of factors that contribute to cybercrime. One of which is large level of unemployment, okay, and to follow up on it, living without the hope of even getting employed at all, okay, and then the population, the explosion in the population, the lack of encouragement or building economy around agriculture where everyone can be adequately employed. You understand? These factors are also contributing to people going into cybercrime activities and all that. And lastly, the laws must be expanded and made dynamic to cater to even preempt and then forecast on the new dimensions of this offense, and then adequate legislation should be made to curb it. And whoever is found guilty, the penalty must be grievous, so that it can stand as a deterrent to some other prospective cybercrime offenders in future.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.
The program has been focused, and on this episode, with the help of my guest, we have effectively looked at cybercrime in Nigeria and how it can be curbed. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for finding out time to come join us in this studio. Please ensure to follow us on our social media handles, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at CK10 Media. My name is Joseph Effiong, and your regular host on the show. Thank you so much.